Silas Garrison, thanks for joining us today. We are talking to you about the company that you run, HealthSpace Data Systems. You are the CEO. And as we begin, it says in your on your website that HealthSpace is committed to helping government agencies operate more efficiently through the use of revolutionary cloud platform and making information digitally accessible to the citizens and businesses they regulate. We want to hear more about that and how exactly that operates. And why don't you just begin? Give us an overview of the company, if you would, and how long you've been around and where's your sweet spot on the services you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So HealthSpace has been, as a company, around for quite some time. First getting it started as kind of a small technological provider to government, and built up a really solid reputation in a fairly niche space. The word health and health space actually comes from the fact that the majority of our customers that we service are environmental health departments. And for a lot of folks who don't know what environmental health is, it's a subset of what most people have heard the moniker health department. And a health department is actually kind of multiple agencies that operate with under one umbrella term. But the bottom line is, HealthSpace has been around for a while. I myself has been in the GovTech space, which is kind of where we operate government and technology, GovTech. I've been in this space for better part of 20 years and have delivered software solutions for government agencies all across US and Canada, the majority of North America. And today, what we are focused on is providing a cloud-based technological platform for data management for government. And right now, with the majority of our focus on the environmental health aspect, what does that mean? It means that these agencies that utilize our platform manage every facet of their daily workflow, from issuing permits and licenses to conducting sanitary inspections. Think of like a restaurant score that you might see on the wall when you walk into your neighborhood eatery. That is conducted by the health department. And they utilize our software to conduct all of that data management and workflow, as well as aspects of like billing and accounting. So our software is very deep in terms of what it covers. But the biggest thing about it and the biggest selling point is that it's nimble and it's flexible. Cloud-based within government is actually still fairly unique, not all that common, but also the fact that our platform is what we call self-serve, meaning it can be changed on a dime to really an ever-changing kind of paradigm, which is government, with new laws, regulations constantly introduced. That's what we focused on. And so we help them operate and manage that data that is underlying every single health department more efficiently, more easily.
And as everyone knows, over the last year and a half or so, we've been dealing with the pandemic. I'm curious, has that brought out more interest in your company in that time, with so much more engagement and trying to regulate those who have been either vaccinated, those who have had the disease? It must have really thrown a hurdle at a lot of governments and the traditional county healthcare systems that heretofore never had to deal with such a crisis.
Yes, it absolutely, it threw the world for a loop, right? Everybody was caught off guard. But health departments in particular felt an acute level of pain and level of burden. Health departments were the ones who were shouldering most of the things that you heard a lot about in the news, contact tracing. And when you heard statistics, such as number of cases or deaths or things like that were often very dark, those were generally run by the health department and kept track by the health department, whether that be at a county level or a state level. And so, yes, we saw an enormous shift of greater need for data management, for cloud-based data management. Government wasn't unique. Everybody effectively started working from home, those who had the luxury of being able to work from home. And government, which is historically always been an office, in-person type of workforce, it was very unique for them and challenging, wherein a lot of agencies, they don't have cloud-based technology and their data was not in a cloud-based environment. So it's one of the things that is really pushing and creating a greater need for people to actually look at solutions like ours. The other thing about it is it did create new opportunities. Contact tracing, one of those things that got a lot of buzz and PR and still to this day is relevant because COVID hasn't gone away. our platform was being able to pivot it and utilize in states like Hawaii for their contact tracing program. And so, yeah, we were able to, and we still see a lot of new surge of demand for our products and even greater need for the services that we provide.
I know I am located here in Illinois, in the middle of Illinois. You have at least a couple of counties, Vermilion County, Illinois, and Mason County, Illinois, which is about an hour north of where I'm sitting, have utilized your services. I know you just recently did something with San Francisco. So you're working, as I understand it, at both the state level and certainly the municipal level. And one of the things about government, and I think this might be where you come into play, is you don't have to, using your software, the local government doesn't have to have at every level their own software engineer, that you're kind of bringing them that software, and then you can work with the local government where their people, I presume, get trained on how to use your cloud-based software, but then it's functional so that you can efficiently go from whether it's Vermilion County, Illinois to San Francisco, California. You can provide that service. I would imagine there's a lot of that different levels of government probably face often the same challenge that your software then can provide. And it really doesn't make a difference if you're in the middle of Central Illinois or the middle of California. Maybe here and there, there's some differences. How difficult is it to train the people at the local level to use your software, and how long does it take from the time they subscribe to your services to where they're functional on it?
Well, our services are offered, as industry term known as software as a service, or SaaS. So being a SaaS business means that yes, our product is offered kind of off the shelf to every single customer that we serve, and it's configurable, which means that it's not static. Not every single customer utilizes it in the exact same way. Government doesn't operate that way. The San Francisco City Health Department is far different than Vermilion, Illinois, and it's far different from the state of Florida in terms of the codes that they track, how they do their business, and all those type of things. And so while it is one product that we're able to deliver and deliver fairly quickly, it is tailored to each unique use case. And that's really one of the most powerful elements of it, is that we're able to take it and implement it in jurisdictions and geographic regions that are far different from one another, simply because of the nimble nature of it. But it handles every facet for these health departments. They can still all uniquely manage their licenses or their permits. And one of the reasons why I say licenses or permits, because even the nomenclature changes. One county calls it a license, another calls it a permit. It's effectively the same thing, but their nomenclature matters and what they call it. And this is a very small microscopic example of how government changes on a local basis, and those changes are very meaningful to them. And having their software be able to adapt to their situation is very powerful.
At the local, well, for me, covering Illinois politics in my last 20 years or so, you see that sometimes government is reluctant, they're slow to move, they're slow to adapt. Illinois is still using some computers from the Reagan administration. It's amazing. Have you run into that? Is that kind of one of the challenges in dealing with government, that maybe they're not as in tune as the private sector in keeping the technology up to speed? And how much of a hurdle is that when you try to reach out and offer your services and convince people in government that you can help them? I presume not only do their job better, but maybe even save them money from the way they're doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Government is traditionally, and they will admit themselves, they are behind the times. And there's reasons. There are actually good reasons why government just doesn't go and adopt the latest, greatest technology that just came on the market last week. Security, data, privacy, all those type of things are relevant. But when we're talking about something like cloud being around and being proven and being really the most prevalent and efficient way to manage information in this day and age, it's something that's been around for a while, tried and true, and in fact, really the most preferred method technological approach for government nowadays, and even at a local level. Counties that even 5 years ago might have been like, oh, do we want a cloud-based solution, or do we want to be on a server in our office? That paradigm has almost completely gone away. But that being said, there's always still technical challenges that come with operating with government. For instance, the city of San Francisco, they were coming off of a internal built database that was built, I think, somewhere almost 15, 20 years ago. And so, being that the technology was, even in this day and age, 15 years, it's a long time ago when it comes to technology, and trying to extract data from that kind of older system is very challenging for us to accomplish. That being said, what a lot of people will view as impediments or challenges, we see as opportunities, because government is desirous of cloud solutions. They're desirous of more cutting edge type of things. And there's very few companies, because they see this as an impediment. They see that government are slow adopters. They're not going to want something that's new and powerful or shiny and cloud-based. A lot of the innovation stays out of the government space. And I find that to be very unfortunate, but also a very encouraging opportunity, because government does want more of the latest and greatest, but very few companies are actually even trying to provide it.
It's fascinating, because just as you and I are talking right here, you coming from Charlotte, this is relatively new technology that you and I are using. And I've often thought, having covered government, just how slow they are to adapt. But I think as we get people in office who come in, the newer generation, people maybe more your generation than mine, they are more attuned, I think, to technology and how it changes, can make operations far more efficient. And just as we've seen in the private sector, where everyone's being asked to do more with less, government is often looked at its power as being how many people are working in my department. How much of a payroll do I have? And I would just argue you don't have to say maybe, but hopefully we're going to get new leaders in government across the board, where they look at how efficient can we provide the services, how much faster can we provide the services, and to maybe, as I think with your software, provide services and information that heretofore were not available at all at any cost, because they can get their hands on the data they need in probably very short order, I would guess, so that it's still actionable data.
Oh, absolutely. And one of those things is, our primary cloud-based product is named HS Cloud. So HS Cloud is really what is the majority of every single one of our customers is using, this cloud-based data management platform. But one of the latest products that actually, Terry, you touched on when you said the way we're communicating literally in this moment is through, a video conference call, something really not all that readily available or prevalent 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Not very many people are still doing it. In the day and age of COVID, it's ushered in a new wave of mass adoption. And we actually are literally one of, if not the first that we know of, to actually usher in a teleconferencing service bundled with our data management platform. We call it GovCall. And GovCall is the first built for government teleconferencing platform like this, but it's tied into the underlying data management. COVID has really changed the paradigm and the perception that government services, like an inspector, have to always be done in person, driving across town, spending hours in the car and doing all those things, when a lot of their stuff is visual recognition. Was this issue rectified? Was this problem resolved? And it's a visual confirmation more than anything. And in those instances, it should just be a conference call, a teleconference call. And so one of our latest products that we've just announced and are just getting launched out into the market, that's being met with a lot of very positive reception from these counties and these agencies, is GovCall. And so again, it goes back to the government is wanting to accept and adopt this, latest and greatest things. They're just not given a lot of opportunities to do that. And so we're very excited about where we sit and where the market opportunity sits.
I mentioned that you do work with San Francisco. You just recently signed up Marin County, which is right across the bay from San Francisco. Is that coincidental, or do you find that when you get one government entity and they're in the same jurisdiction or same metropolitan area, that word of mouth, because they talk across, just as every industry does. Maybe they're sharing information. How are you getting your sales, I guess, is one thing I would say. Are you getting it to some extent because it's word of mouth, people saying, hey, we started using this company and now we're really happy with them? And how much of it is internal sales? And I guess you just pick up the phone and call people, and where are your sales coming from, and to what extent are you experiencing growth in the company?
It's a very much a relationship-based and reference-based type of industry. And so, yes, it is very much not an accident that we picked up San Francisco and Marin County, as well as Sonoma County in the same metropolitan area there in the Bay Area. And so, really, all of that comes because we signed San Francisco. Very much the same. We had, a very similar path in Texas. We signed on Plano, Texas, then City of Fort Worth, then Dallas. Right in the same metropolitan area. It's not an accident. You're able to deploy your software in a regional specific way. And really that first adopter is almost always a domino to a lot more adoption in that region. And so we're going to continue to see it spread in California. There's a lot of demand, and there's kind of an incumbent provider that's had the California market largely on lock that we are displacing. Marin County and many others are moving away from another software provider to move towards us. And so, the ability to sell one agency, one county in a particular area means that there will be more to come.
I want to, just to clarify, am I correct that you're really focusing solely on government, that you're not also providing services to the private industry? And if that is the case, do you intend to stay with that or go into the private sector as well?
So we are all focused on government. Government being such a massive, I feel and believe, a very untapped market, really. Even though there's multi-billion-dollar software providers in this space, there's a lot still left in terms of greenfield, but there's also, even those large companies are not selling modern software solutions. So all that being said, what we see is purely a focus on government with a bend towards helping the private sector keep up with their regulation by facilitating, citizen-based portals, online portals that the government themselves can manage, publish information through, that allow the citizens and the private business owners, the private sector themselves, to manage the data that directly relates to how they interact with government. So we are not directly focused on the private sector ourselves, but indirectly in facilitating solutions for government that allow them to interact more efficiently with the private sector.
And as far as your footprint right now of clients, are you also, I think you're also in Canada, if I'm not sure of that, but are you looking to become global, or are you going to be focusing on North America for some time?
Given both our current size and just this year opportunity, we are definitely focused on just North America, the US and Canada more specifically. We do have Canadian customers all across most of the provinces, and we're in about 30 some odd states here in the US. And so there's still a lot of opportunity out there just within the US alone. And we are also starting to see a new wave of demand. COVID kind of cooled off the Canadian market, but it started to rewarm in terms of new opportunities. And so what we're seeing is just, it's all focused on the US and the Canadian markets. And we're going to keep on focusing there until the opportunity doesn't seem until we saturate it a little bit more, I should say.
And if we look in terms of investors, let me bring up, you're a publicly traded company. You're on the over-the-counter market here in the United States. Canada probably has a slightly different ticker symbol, but there's the American symbol. If anyone is interested, I think currently, as we tape this in September 21, you're in the neighborhood of 82 cents or so. What do you see the future for the company as a CEO, as a publicly traded company? What would you tell investors about the opportunity as you see it?
Yeah, the opportunity, from a just sheer market size, it's hundreds of millions of dollars just in the near term, or the near the nearby markets that we serve: environmental health, public health, departments of agriculture. These are all agencies that are our customers, and we're at right around 4.5 million in annual recurring revenue. That ARR, very important SaaS-based metric. And so right around that $4.5 million market we sit right now, we project that we'll close the end of this year, calendar year 2021, somewhere around 5.5. But really, the opportunity is far beyond that. We anticipate by the end of 2022 nearing or achieving 10 million in ARR. And that's kind of our next benchmark, somewhere over the next 12 to 18 months as we sit today, getting to 10 million in ARR. But really beyond that, over the next 5 to 7 years, our focus is to get to 50 million plus in ARR. And that is, that it can be done just with the environmental health market alone, but we're starting to go into other adjacent verticals, such as code enforcement, another local agency type that has very similar needs: licensing, inspections, billing, and all of those things that can directly benefit from our cloud-based solutions, not to mention GovCall and the opportunity that represents. And one thing that we didn't talk about, Terry, which is our fintech solution, which is HSPay. It's an online and mobile payment solution that streamlines the intake of governmental revenue. And to this day, so many government agencies, especially on the local level, the majority of the revenue, when they're issuing licenses and there's a fee involved, the majority of that revenue is still collected through check in the mail or cash in person. So when we talk about efficiency, that is our core focus, and we've got 4 great products that really hit home on that. But mainly our cloud-based data management plus GovCall plus HSPay. Major revenue drivers, and we anticipate a lot of growth, not just in this coming quarter, or not just next year, but over the next 5, 6, 7 years. We anticipate really taking a massive bite out of the government sector, and it's a multi-billion-dollar segment. It's $50 million in achievable revenue in just terms of next, call it 5 years, is really a very small percentage of the overall market size when you gauge it that way.
I think it's great to hear, number one, your growth story. You're going right now at about 25% to go from 4 to 5, but you're talking about then going up 100% to 10 million and beyond. As you say, it's a huge market. And I know so many times the private sector people, for reasons I get, government can be frustrating to deal with, so they're not dealing with it. They're not reaching out as you are. And so it's encouraging, as one who's covered government and gets frustrated myself at how behind the times they are, that if we can have a company such as leadership that you're providing, the services you're providing, and to help government move forward so that they can do more to become a 21st century and move away from the 20th century, as you say. And I was chuckling when you were saying about the check. I just had to go down and physically hand a check for my property taxes the other day, whereas yesterday I went online and paid my cable bill just in a matter of seconds. I paid my insurance on the house online. So it really kind of hit home what you're saying. And if we could get those in government to say, take ownership of what you're doing and make some lasting changes by bringing your department, whether it's a health department or any other one in government, to where they can be more on top of things. A couple of years ago, I'll share, I interviewed the state comptroller, and she was saying it would take her 9 months to get data because their systems were so antiquated that by the time they got the data set, it was no longer actionable because it was almost a year old. So I just say that to say, from where I've kind of been able to stick my nose under the tent on the inside of government, I can see exactly what you're saying and how much these cloud-based services are needed to where the local people can, as you say, not have to hire their own software engineers. They can go and use your services and bring their department up to speed, I would say, in a short order. How long does it generally take for the time when they start to where, they're functional on your system?
Well, that's a great question, because depending on I would say that the readiness of the agency is the biggest factor. From a platform standpoint and our ability to deliver services and software, it could be as little as 60 to 90 days. But we run into issues where certain business requirements take a little extra time, and then if we're working on data out of an antiquated system, in that one specific example you gave where it took 9 months just to get the data, I would say that we face that from time to time working with our customers. It's not their fault. They're trying to get their historical data so they can import it into our cloud solution. And sometimes they just have to sit there and wait for whatever antiquated solution they were. But generally speaking, you can get up and running in as little as 60 to 90 days. And if it's a larger agency or a larger, metropolitan area, sometimes it takes a couple extra months. But generally speaking, it's very quick and nimble to be able to actually adopt it, configure it, set it up, and go.
Well, Silas Garrison, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, and good luck to you in your providing these services. I think it's kind of a win-win, both for you, but also for the taxpayers and for the government, if they can get up to speed to where I think they need someone like your company to help hold their hand and to show them how they can do more with cloud-based solutions versus what they've had in the past. And until someone kind of walks them through it and brings them to the fore. As you say, you got San Francisco, then you got Marin County and others. I think hopefully people will hear this in government and maybe reach out to you. What's the best way, if they want to reach out to you, that they can get a hold of you?
The best way is just go to our website, gethealthspace.com. So GET, healthspace.com. One of the things, Terry, I will mention in terms of what you were saying is our focus is really, truly, our heart is to help government manage and operate more efficiently, manage that information. We view each customer as a partnership. And as you talk about like other solutions or the way that the status quo that they're doing it now, whether it's a competitive vendor that they're on or an homegrown solution, what we believe is that software should be into the way that you do business, the way that you do work, the way that you perform, your regulatory inspections and licensing and workflows. The software should bend to that, not the other way around. Too often we see so many customers that come to us and we'll ask them, why are you doing your business process that way? The old software just made us do it this way. And there's no thought or ability to be like, this isn't the most efficient, more thoughtful way to do it. And so, we really work hard to not only bring the software and the technology, but the know-how to help them understand, okay, this is actually a better way to get from, kind of simply put it, point A to point Z. Combined with our service expertise and our knowledge of just the space plus the technology, we really are just focused in on being that perfect partner to government.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Before I wrap up here, I was going to share that there was a secretary of a department here in Illinois was testifying before a House committee. This was probably about 7 years ago. And her department had revenues going through in the billions of dollars, not just 1 billion, billions of dollars. And she testified that we're using computers so old we have to use COBOL, and we can't get people to write the code anymore because they're all dead or retired. And this just goes to show, the need. It was one of those moments that stuck in my mind as I was covering that committee hearing. It was jaw-dropping that you have billions and billions of dollars moving through government, and yet their systems, as I say, were dated back to when Ronald Reagan was first elected president, which also, I would say, gives maybe investors an idea of where your currently $4 million in annual revenues can go with some of the solutions that you can provide to governments, not just in Illinois, but just across North America.
Absolutely. And it really is a limitless opportunity in terms of upside, for growth. And we're really just focused on one customer at a time, turning up the best possible solution we can. So Simply put, I love what we do. Our team is just wakes up every day, and working with government is a uniquely gratifying type of thing because the underlying work you're providing and the work that you're doing on behalf of these agencies with these agencies is it's very meaningful and impacts the citizens. It impacts the lives of everyday government workers who provide essential services to the general public. So yeah, safe to say that the opportunity is quite large. We are very excited for where we sit. And really what's ahead for us here at HealthSpace.
Well, listen, we will let you go today, but we appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can come back and touch base with you and give an update on what I expect will be a fast growth company in the years ahead. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Terry, for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, take care now.